With a library theme and magical feeling, Ariana and the Elder Codex definitely has a lot to like about it, exploring its isolated story worlds through a unique blend of action side-scrolling and RPG elements and skill management as you repair the pages of its world. Ariana is ready to give intriguing short stories next to the one at its core, all while giving you all the challenge you could ever want with its challenging boss battles and Metroidvania-style exploration, but in a font that makes this fan of pretty JRPGs love being in it. I'll remember it for the challenges it gave me, but also for its narrative moments. With Ariana and the Elder Codex, a combination of small worlds and satisfying gameplay I'd like to see more of again. Ariana and the Elder Codex waste no time getting started, throwing its namesake protagonist into a Codex world to show you one of her repairs. In this world with magic, there are 7 hero Codices, but because they've been tampered with, the world's magic has disappeared too. So Ariana, the only person who can explore them from the inside, is tasked with fixing these important worlds to bring magic back, and this is what you can expect the story to cover as you play. Ariana is special beyond her magic ability though. She's been living in the library because her parents have been long missing, but still truly believes they're alive and out there somewhere. Supported by her maid automaton Vester and rival magician Davina from the sidelines, it's up to Ariana to enter these book worlds alone and restore their pages in the world's magic with it, and an artful storybook side-scroller that is ready to tell you narratives both big and small along the way. Entering the Codices means taking control of Ariana and its side-scrolling gameplay, a way of play that makes exploring these Codex worlds unique. You start off with base abilities. You can jump and slash enemies that makes it feel hack and slashy at first, but as the themes of its stories unfold, you gain important skills, the first being elemental damage that corresponds with each book, with the Water Codex giving you water magic, and so on. There are also exploration abilities gained as you go too, such as the Codex of Wind extending your jump, meaning your first times in some of these worlds will have some places unreachable until you progress, making one satisfying part of progression gaining new abilities and finding new ways to explore and win battles as you play. Each area is broken up into chapters separated by rest points, although don't always feel that separated as you run through each world, seeing the events of different short stories and unlocking lore as you go, with stories ranging from ones about family, illness, and a goddess versus real-world themed stories like one set in a science lab. The world is ready to give you extra challenges as you play and rewards you with lore and blessings such as increasing your HP if you succeed. But these aren't the only reasons to play, as Ariana's battles and challenges can be quite addictive. I played on normal, and the fast-paced, relentless boss battles and challenges were a huge highlight of my playthrough. Ariana really isn't afraid to throw the whole kitchen sink at you when it comes to things you need to dodge and finding that right moment to attack. But if you get into its RPG elements, you can take advantage of them to make winning more likely. A cool feature if you use elemental attacks is that no matter which element you use, this accumulates elemental value on an enemy, and if you do it enough quicker if you use the right one, the enemy experiences an elemental burst, a mini explosion of sorts where you can deal big damage, usable on regular enemies and bosses alike. This perfectly links with Ariana's elemental advent forms that you'll unlock as you clear their corresponding codices. Since Ariana by default possesses a more neutral attack, an advent changes her default to match her attack to an element, allowing you to get enemies to that burst state much quicker and also enjoy a slight change in her appearance. Burst and advents together, along with some late-game big attacks, allow you to go beyond just dodging and jumping and think more about enemies and the way attacks move as you try and get them all elemented up to take them down quicker. In the end, I found my skills to feel kind of like a deck I liked playing. I had a vertical attack, long range / healing, and other directions to cover all bases, all in a rainbow of elements to try have something for every type of enemy, letting me focus on the kind of skillful combat moves and dashes the late game is gonna need you to have, and I definitely met game overs at points, but the challenges its enemies gave me as they shot, jumped, and threw lasers at me all felt so fun, and I was always happy to come back, focus hard, and try again. With the right technique to dodge its attacks that take up the whole screen, along with things like disappearing platforms and hidden areas to help you get stronger, Ariana is a welcome battle challenge that I never expected would come in side-scrolling form. Its Metroidvania-style progression and gameplay feels good to try against its tough enemies, and I love knowing I always have Ariana sitting there to dish out attacks in a world with hard but satisfying battles, with plenty of pretty visuals to make it a nice place to do it in. Ariana Ariana and the Elder Codex is about exploring storybook worlds, but also in the background is Ariana's own story of her missing family and how exploring these codices affect her. The storybook imagery means these self-contained worlds have their own beauty, somehow reminding me of visually charming Vita games of before, with the stories within them reflecting an impactful sentiment of sorts, all before helping to restore an element to Ariana's world. While each world doesn't take that long to explore, with my playthrough getting close to 28 hours, their short and meaningful moments made me love what each one had to say, often rewarding you with a little bit about Ariana's own story too. An extra cherry on top is you can pretty much play these worlds in whatever order you like, and Ariana's story will unfold chapter by chapter too at the pace it's supposed to, that I liked as it added to these stories being their own contained worlds and gives you something else to do if one of the bosses is currently too tough. Back in the library when I wasn't gaining equipment and leveling up skills, I was also impressed with how in-depth some of the NPC dialogue between Ariana and the other librarians was. It's the kind of game where, both in its storybook worlds and the library, the more you choose to interact with it, the more lore you'll find, even hidden on its shelves. And while it's still talking about a world with about 20 hours of story, I think it did a good job of detailing Ariana's origins and her relationships that make its ending more impactful when you get to it. The self-contained part of everything reminds me of games with portals I liked as a kid, and makes me wish this was a series where we could experience more fun and challenging gameplay and short stories like this, and what I see could be a fun formula of short stories and almost level-based play with unique side-scrolling battles. That will depend on how Ariana does, I'm sure, but I certainly loved it enough to hope we see more, and at the very least, there's still some things to find if I want to keep playing. As I said, my own Ariana journey was about 28 hours, with a good 10 of those being boss training and getting game overs, and the rest being the core game. The story does encourage you to 100% its levels to do better with its final boss, so some of my grinding could have been because of that, but I actually wanted to have a little left to play with, as I see it as a good way to release frustrations after a long day, so I have about 10 to 20% left on multiple of its worlds. That means I'll be able to do that if I ever want to. I'll also be able to do that on Switch, as while my main playthrough was on PS5, I was also able to try the Switch version. Ariana ran surprisingly well on my original Switch, and is where the PS Vita game comparisons in my head began, with its colors popping in handheld mode. It was a little less smooth in its first boss fight though, with some occasional slight jumpiness as it processes the relentless assault its bosses like to do, giving me a little bit of concern for some of its more crazy late game battles. So that, along with the fact my main game is on PS5, means I see no need to play the Switch version, although I did try its Japanese voiceover on there and the English VO on PS5 and think they're both very good, and I do think the Switch version is fine, but I preferred playing on PS5 where performance never crossed my mind. If you're looking for a JRPG with fast action, don't mind side-scrolling, and like the idea of playing through storybook worlds, that's what I'll be leaving Ariana remembering and keeping in mind when I get the itch to give and receive absolute chaotic assault in one of its boss battles. I'm glad my journey with this pretty magical librarian could tell an emotive story of sentiments with a nice character at the helm, in a type of gameplay I'd like to play in story worlds with again. Ariana and the Elder Codex's unique side-scrolling take on a storybook JRPG did not disappoint. I loved moving through the pages of its storybook worlds, doing challenges, and finding extra lore to get immersed in, and I'm very pleasantly surprised that it also featured some of the craziest boss battles I've had in a long time. I truly enjoyed the mental stretching I had to do to figure out how to dish out my own onslaught as relentless as its bosses that made me feel so satisfied when I finally won, and I can imagine it being insane if you're brave enough to try a higher difficulty. It's a fast-paced yet elegant way to play the story with multiple worlds in, and I hope we see something again from it someday, as Ariana and the Elder Codex is the type of skillful JRPG placed in storybooks that I never knew I needed, and hope to experience, challenge, and interesting narratives in again soon. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below if you'll try Ariana and the Elder Codex, and if you have, what did you think of it? You can like and share this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel for more JRPG content like this, and ring that bell to get notifications on whenever I post so you don't miss a thing. You can check out more videos here, and you can find me on social media on X, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, all at JRPG Jungle. Links to those will be in the description below. Thank you to Ida Factory for the code, and until next time, thank you, bye!